why a black belt in judo matters. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new, this channel is all about fitness for martial arts for older guys. Now, if you're young, you ain't gonna be young forever. I promise you that. So, in this video, guys, trust me, I'm 44 years old. I'm about to turn 45 in about a month and a half. And I've been doing martial arts my whole life. Black belt in judo, blue belt in BJJ. And yeah, man, it's a very short happening youth, you know? So me, as soon as you hit 30, you're no longer young, right? So young is up until maybe 25. Then you're like, you're not even that young anymore, man, you know? And then anywhere between 25 to 30, that's just like pre-oldness, pre-old age or whatever. Okay, so in this video, we're gonna talk about why black belt matters in judo. So in a lot of martial arts, some martial arts, the belts have been highly commercialized. So now it's not even worth what it should be worth. Because I guess, you know, it's a money thing and people are like, yeah, you know, pay me this amount of money in the next 2-3 years, you'll get a black belt. But, you know, it shouldn't really be that way. Now in judo, a black belt, in my opinion, is very important and is definitely worth something achieving, of getting. So, and the black belt, really, it's just the beginning. But let me explain. So I read a article written by DC Judo, and I'm going to put the link and slash the page right here so you guys can check it out. And I read it, and it was really interesting. So I'm going to read to you guys a little part of what I got from there. And this is about why a belt system is in place and is worth having. Well, worth having. More why it's in place. So belts, recognition and respect for individual progress. I think this is absolutely an amazing idea. Okay. Second, identification of technical knowledge to serve as a teacher. We're going to get back to that. But remember that, guys. To serve, technical knowledge to serve as a teacher. Goal setting and measurement of progress through technical curriculum. Risk management in competition. Right? Now, all of this makes a lot of sense to me, and I think it should make a lot of sense to you as well. So, understanding the fundamentals enough to start your journey into mastery. That's what a black belt in judo means. It means that you mastered the basics, the fundamentals, and now you could start your journey officially to becoming the best judoka that you can be. You can really start to play around with it and to develop yourself properly. And also, it makes you qualified to teach because you're not officially qualified to teach judo until you get a black belt. No matter how good you are, if you don't have the black belt, it means you didn't go through the process of learning what you needed to learn, meaning you didn't learn the kata and you didn't learn the, what do you call it? All the technical terms that you need to know and all the important principles of judo to be able to be qualified to teach it. Now, with that said, there are a lot of guys out there who, you know, technically can teach judo because they have their black belt, but they're not very good fighters, unfortunately. So we'll talk about that at the end, but that's another issue. So for now, let's just get back to the topic at hand. Okay, so here's an analogy for you guys. And this was something actually, yeah, let's start with the analogy. It's like learning a language, guys. So when you want to learn a language, let's say you want to learn English, you would have to learn how to read and write first. Once you know how to read and write well, or well enough, then now you can go on and do other stuff. You can sing, you can write stories, you can write poetry, you can become, you can communicate better, right? You can also, what else can you do here? You could be a comedian. You see, there's a lot of things that you could do once you can read and write. Because now, once you know how to read and write, you know your ABCs, you know the words, you have vocabulary, and so on and so on. So you're able to string sentences together, not only in thought, but in writing and, you know, expressing it verbally as well. So there's a lot of things that go into it after that. So it's not just like you learn to, well, I mean, some people do this, but let's say you learn how to read and write, but you never read and write again. That's a goddamn shame. I'm telling you, you know. But some people are like that with the black belt. So I digress a little bit here, but what I'm saying is that some people think that black belt in judo is the destination. It's where you get to and then you're done. No, you're not done. It's the beginning. And the beginning is just the fun. That's where the fun starts. My coach back in the day told me, when everything you do before black belt, it's kids game. It's kids games. You're just fooling around. You're experimenting. You're falling on your butt. You're throwing people. You're trying crazy stuff. You're trying stuff that's stupid, doesn't work, and You're experimenting a lot, and you're fumbling around, finding your way through the judo techniques and all that. Once you get to black belt, now you officially graduate from being a schmuck, a kid, to being an adult. Now you're in the adult courtyard, right? So now we're talking. Now it's where it begins. Now it's where your journey to mastery begins. So that's why judo is important for you to get to black belt. Also, it's so that you can pass down judo afterwards, right? You could give back and you can continue cultivating yourself, of course, building yourself up and increasing your knowledge, but you can finally give back and you can teach because you're not technically qualified to teach, okay, if you haven't gotten your black belt. And to a certain degree, it's a lack of commitment. Like, if you're not willing to go get your black belt, as much of a pain in the ass it is to get your black belt, if you're committed to the sport, you're a judoka, you got to go get it, man. You got to go get it. I know it sucks. It takes the time that it takes, and you got to learn the kata and all that. But I got to tell you, I'll make another video about this, to self kata video. I appreciate the kata now at this point because I realized that the kata, and I was taught this by one of the senseis when I was going through, my black belt, learning and preparing for my black belt. If we understood how much blood had to be spilt for these katas to be shaped the way they were shaped and organized the way they were organized so that we can have access to them now, we'd all be rushing to study these katas, to understand, because that's how deep it is, That's how deep it is to understand these katas and to learn them, to understand where it all came from. Not all black belts are created equal, of course. So now you have guys, there's two types of possible black belts. Well, actually three. So the first one is the fighter, right? The fighter, and these guys are athletes who didn't take the technical route, so they didn't have to study all that much to get their black belt because they went the competitive route. So they just competed, then they did like a weekend seminar, quick, they showed them the kata, boom, done. They got their black belt. And then there's the other route, which is more the technical route. So a lot of academics, that's what I like to call them now. I've called them worse names in the past. I actually called them nerds, but I don't see it that way. I mean, nothing wrong with nerds, by the way, because I'm kind of a nerd myself when it comes to judo. No, not really, but still. Okay, so academics. The guys who are more academic about it, well, they know all the nomenclature, the techniques, the categories, the names, the principles behind it and all that, but they're not as good in fighting because they haven't done a lot of competition. And maybe it's, sometimes they started later in life and they didn't have the time, they didn't really have the interest, maybe they had some kind of injuries and all that, but, it's very possible that that you could still get your black belts without being, a very good fighter, okay? Both of them are very valuable, both of them, so the fighter is very valuable because of his experience in fighting, in competition, in Shiai, and then the academic is actually very useful, valuable as well, because he knows the principles, he knows what needs to be taught at what stage and all that. So he understands the structure of it all, the logic of it all, the history of it all. So it's actually very, very interesting and important, in my opinion. Now, so in my opinion, neither is really complete on its own. So if you're just a fighter, you're not complete as a judoka. If you're just an academic, you're not complete as a judoka as either. Now, ideally, you want to be both. You want to have that academic side and that fighter/athlete side. Okay, and those, in my opinion, tend to be the best coaches. Now, there is a little caveat here. The fighter side of you, okay, you don't have to be a world champion or Olympic champion. You just have to be fairly decent or highly decent at randori, okay? Because that kind of demonstrates your level of understanding and your level of commitment to practice, okay? So you don't have to be, like, once again, like a world champion or anything like that, but you can't suck, okay? So you have to be fairly good in randori, fairly, right? and or you could be highly good. But you know, good is maybe not the word. Competent, fairly competent or highly competent in randori, and that's enough. Okay, that takes care of the fighter part. And in academics, well, I mean, you got to know what you need to know, because as a black belt, you also represent judo at this point. You don't just represent yourself. It's judo, the sport, the martial art that you represent, the moral code, the values, and all that. So that's why it's important for you to know the names of the techniques, what category they fall in, how to execute them, why it was set up the way it's set up, so that you could teach, correct, and adapt it to your students. Because, or else it's silly. And I've been told this before. It's like, imagine a kid comes and asks you, like a kid as in a beginner, comes and asks you, hey, what's the name of this technique? Can you show me this technique? And you stand there and you don't know what to tell him. Like, you don't know what category, you don't know how to explain things. You're like, oh, I'll do it like this. Not the right way to do it, right? So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please subscribe. And of course, comment below, share the video, helps me grow the channel. Reach out to me on IG so that I can answer your questions. It's easier for me to keep track of our conversations there. And that's it for this one. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.